Go. All right, guys, welcome to today's Habits, Skills, and Attitudes Tuesday call with Maria and Caitlin. Today, I'm going to talk about showing the benefits. So after you've gotten through your buying atmosphere, they can give you a simple yes or a simple no today. And one thing I want to emphasize, guys, this is not where the sale is made. The sale should have, in a sense, already been made when you built the need. At this point, you should have a pretty good idea if they're at least kind of interested or definitely not interested at all. If they weren't interested when you were building the need and talking about indirect costs, then you're not going to sell them on the benefits because they don't think they're going to actually use this. People get this because you make it real enough for them that they think, oh man, if that did happen, that would be kind of tough. So that's kind of what we're trying to have already done. So you'll have already done your buying atmosphere. You'll have already asked your need finding questions. Something like, hey, Mrs. Jones, given just the numbers, the stats, 1 out of 3 men, 1 out of 3 women, 3 out of 4 families. I mean, we hope and pray it doesn't happen, but do you think there is the slightest chance that you or a family member might have to deal with cancer or whatever it is? And if that did happen, might that cause a little extra financial stress and strain at home? And so once they say yes to that, be like, hey, I'm going to show this to you real quick, simple yes or no, all that good stuff. And really, guys, the overall theme when you're showing the benefits is not to just read them all for them, because your prospect can read and that's pretty boring. You want to just highlight maybe the top one or the most important one on each page and then get them talking about it. Ask a question, get them engaged, point out a couple things, and then just keep on going. The benefits part should be a lot quicker. That is the quick part of the demo, a lot quicker than the intro. Some good work to do before you do the demo is when you're building rapport is get their example story. So the closest person to them who's ever gone through whatever, and ask a couple good questions before you start the actual benefits, such as where did they get treated? Did they have surgery? Did any family members travel with them? Were they the main breadwinner? Like, who were they missing work and stuff like that? That gives you a couple clues to later in the benefits, highlight the ones that are going to make the most sense to this particular prospect and give them the highest chance of seeing how they could actually use this. So a couple good ones to highlight when we're talking about cancer and heart, you definitely want to highlight the first occurrence benefit. So basically just kind of show her what it is. Be like, all right, Mrs. Jones, at the Elite 8 level, we'll pay you $6,000 just for getting your diagnosis. Mrs. Jones, if you just got the bad news, what would you use that for? Just kind of break it up right there, make sure they're paying attention, get them engaged, and get them thinking about it. Because if they're not thinking about it, they're just kind of like, oh, $6,000, cool. But then if you're like, okay, imagine you had $6,000 right now, what would you do? And they're like, oh, that kind of makes it a little more real for them. After that, you definitely want to point out on the next page, no lifetime limits. You want to say, Mrs. Jones, why do you think that's so important when you're dealing with cancer or heart attacks or strokes or accidents? Okay, well, and then follow-up question, especially if they don't really know, you're like, well, how long is cancer going to last? Would it be possible to have more than one accident in your life or more than one heart attack or stroke? Yeah, we hope not, but you never know, right? Then whenever you get to something that their example story talked about, like maybe a surgery or a broken bone or whatever the case may be, point out the specific benefit we have for that. Be like, all right, well, in addition to any time spent in the hospital, we're going to pay you this much for every surgery you go through. And you told me that your aunt went through 2 different surgeries and she was dealing with her cancer. Can you see how this benefit could have really helped out? Make sure they're with you, make sure they're paying attention. And this is kind of getting them to do the math as well. So seeing how it all adds up, first occurrence plus whatever they're going through. And sometimes people like to do the math with them. That can sometimes get a little long if you're not good at math, but that's up to you. Basically the rule of thumb, guys, top benefit on the page and then ask a question. This is not supposed to be a lecture. This is not supposed to be boring. We're supposed to kind of move it right along. It's supposed to be quick. If you don't want to read the top one, maybe better to read one that they actually mentioned that they were going through. Just kind of, that's where it comes to tailoring the demo a little bit, not just knowing who you're talking to and what they're going through. And if you don't know, if you didn't get a good story from them, then just do the top one. It's fine. Another important thing to do is to continually highlight how this is different from your health insurance, because they might see a list of medical things with dollar amounts and they're like, oh, you're paying for my surgeries, or you're paying for my broken bones or whatever. So I always tell people, keep in mind, if you have health insurance, that pays hopefully at least 80% of all your doctor bills. But all these dollar amounts you see here in these two columns, that's going directly to you and your bank account to use for whatever it is you need. And then I'll usually go back to their biggest indirect expense. So whether they said it was their mortgage or their childcare, that's when we'd kind of come into it like, excuse me. Yeah, just tell them like what they're going to be able to use it for. Go back to that. And then it's important to ask, you can see why so many so-and-so, like fill in the blank of their demographic. You can see why so many business owners, so many families are getting this, right? Kind of trial closing questions, see if they're with you, see if they're engaged, see if they're into it at all. Talk about chemo radiation briefly. I usually say everybody goes through some kind of chemo radiation. That's usually a question I ask earlier if we're talking about the cancer. How many rounds did your so-and-so go through? And then you go back to that. Everyone's different. But you told me your aunt, she was going about 3 times a week, and her sister was driving her, and it was about 2 hours from home. When you're going through cancer, it's just nice to have options, right? And again, remind them to say people don't get this because they're planning on using it. They hope they never do. And then let's see. At some point, you want to make sure they're with you. It should be like, hey, is this making sense so far? Do you have any questions? And a good trial closing question to do is, what do you like best? Do you like the different things it covers or how it pays you cash directly? So choice of 2 positives, and you're really just looking for how enthusiastically they respond. They might be like, oh, I love everything about it, or I like this, or they might be like, I don't know. And if they're kind of just not enthusiastic and not with you, then probably just keep on going, but wrap it up pretty quick. When you talk about the wellness benefit, yeah, you pointed out, be like, yeah, we'll pay you up to $240 for getting your checkups, all these different checkups listed here. Would you agree that detecting cancer early would give you the best chance of probably beating it? And it kind of hyped that one up. That's pretty cool that we actually pay them to get their checkups. Because I don't know about you guys, but I meet so many people who just hate going to the doctor, and they literally won't go unless they're dying. So this is a good incentive for them. And the travel benefit is really cool. So you guys should know in your area what are like the good hospitals for different things. So I know in Virginia, we have a pretty good trauma center, but when it comes to cancer, a lot of people tell me they'd rather go to Duke or UVA. And both of those places are 2 to 3 hours from my territory. So for a lot of people, the travel benefit is really pretty cool, because obviously travel is expensive. So what we want to ask them when we get to that page, be like, why do you think most people don't get treated at the best facilities, like the Mayo Clinic or whatever? Then they're like, oh, it's expensive, traveling is expensive and all this stuff. I've got kids. And then you want to ask them like a question like, hey, well, Ms. Jones, if you were diagnosed with cancer and your doctor told you that you should get treated at MD Anderson, for example, because they specialize in that type of cancer, I mean, where would you want to go? Obviously, I'd want to go to MD Anderson. Exactly. So we're just here to give you that option to help you out with that. And if you were going through cancer, I mean, no one wants to go through that alone. Who would you take with you? Your spouse, a sibling, a friend? We'll pay for a family member to come with you as well. So you're not going through it alone, pay for their lodging. And a lot of people really like that one as well. And really you just want to say something along the lines of, wouldn't it be nice to have that option? It sure is nice to have options, isn't it? Just kind of getting them to think that, because really they're in control of how this policy works. Some people tell me they don't want to go through chemo. It's like, well, you don't have to go through chemo, but if you do, we're going to help you out with that. You know, there's just so many different scenarios with cancer, with accidents, with heart issues. It's really up to them, but it's your job to kind of get their story a little bit ahead of time and kind of have an idea of what they might want to use this for. So it's just your job to make it real for them. You kind of almost want to make them feel like they already have cancer. Just for a few minutes there, I'm talking in the present tense. People get this because they hope they're never going to use it, but because they think it's possible. If they don't think there's any chance that they're going to ever get cancer, then they probably wouldn't even bother with this. So you do want to make it seem kind of possible to them a little bit. And then when you get to the exclusions page, don't harp on that too much. Be like, hey guys, here's all the fine print. If you've had cancer in the past 10, most recent than 10 years, probably not going to qualify. It takes 30 days to kick in, and it covers cancer, like we've been talking about. That's the fine print pretty much. Then ICU, just touch on that briefly. Say your ICU rounds out your coverage for any reason that could put you in ICU. So not only cancer, but also if you had a stroke or a heart attack, a serious accident, even COVID is covered under this. We've had a lot of claims from that. And then make sure you point out that it doubles if you're in there because of a car accident. And that's pretty cool. So that's a car, that's a bus, a plane, a train, public transportation, anything like that. And then I find it helpful to read. There's this one claim that we have with a single mom who was in a major car accident, was in ICU for like 6 days and was out of work for 5 months. And so if you guys don't have that, send me a message and I can share that with you. But I usually read that one right here and I say, gosh, Mrs. Jones, even if you're not a single mom, missing work for 5 months, that's going to impact a lot of people. I mean, can you see how this benefit was probably really helpful to this lady in this situation? Like that. And then accidental death, that's another good one to highlight. You can say, hey, this obviously doesn't replace $1 million life insurance policy, but can you see how that would be helpful with final expenses? Especially older folks, they're always thinking about that kind of thing. And really hype up our commitments. Be like, listen, like this money's going to you, like your health insurance is paying the doctors. This is going to your bank account, whatever you want to do with it. Guaranteed renewable. It means we can never cut you off. Doesn't matter if you have 5 heart attacks or you're the most accident prone person you've ever met. We can't cut you off. You're going to talk to a live person. All our business is conducted in the United States. And you're going to get my cell phone number too, guys. I'm your local agent. I'm someone you can talk to when the home office is closed. People love having just somebody in person they can deal with. And make sure you kind of emphasize that your premium's never going up. Because think about like most of your insurance, like your health insurance, your car insurance. What tends to happen to the premium if you actually use it? Right? Yeah. So that's why we keep it the same as it is, so that you're protected as long as you need it. We're not trying to penalize you for something out of your control like cancer. And so that's kind of ends the benefits part, and that should be fairly quick. Again, depending on how talkative they are, it might be a little more in depth. But basically, guys, look, to summarize, you just want to build the need, paint the picture, and we're only using the facts to back up our stories. So we have their story, we have our testimonials, and the numbers just like backing it up. We're not trying to sell it based on the actual benefits. And then definitely just sprinkling testimonials throughout as you see fit and as time allows. Caitlin, is there anywhere else in the benefits where you would typically show a testimonial?
I really just think it depends on who you're sitting with and depends on the prospect. If they have a personal story that you already know of, or if they're like in a unique situation, then I might sprinkle one in depending on who I'm talking to. Trying to think. I usually take Richard Davis's claim out during the accident benefit, just because he got into a pretty bad accident and I like to drive that one home, and that one, everybody can relate to because accidents happen to
Mhm.
everyone. But I really just play it by year. Just, like I always tell my new agents, pick like 4 or 5 IRAs that you know inside and out, memorize them, know them word for word so that you can pop them in and out wherever you need to so that it flows depending on, every prospect that you're sitting with.
That's a great point, Caitlin. Just knowing your IRAs really well. So, guys, I'd recommend reading your IRAs every morning. Depending on how many you have, it shouldn't really take that long. And the point of that is really just to get to know them so that when you're kind of going through it, whether it's your stack of paper or your iPad, you can get to them quickly and you can kind of have an idea when you're talking to somebody, like, oh, this person, they could probably relate to this story. And just kind of knowing that stuff, it will just help the demo flow faster and help it make a little more sense instead of just kind of a random testimonial. But that's pretty much all I have for presenting the benefits. Caitlin, is there anything you'd like to add? Anything you do differently?
No, you did a really good job just driving home the fact that, we're not here to spell out every single benefit. We'd be here literally all day. Just picking, your 4 to 5 top pieces of each ones and then leaving them with the brochure. Say, guys, there's a ton of fine print that I didn't even cover. Just make sure you read up on it. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Awesome. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Any comments? Anything to clarify?
Maria, that was awesome. That was so good, guys. I really hope you guys were taking some really good notes because you have the top 2 sales producer, number 1 sales producer in the entire state of Virginia who just taught on that, and I took several good notes as well. Just keeping it simple and keeping it short and sweet. And guys, the whole purpose of the demo is just to prove the introduction as facts. And those trial closing questions that you were talking about, Maria, is a game changer because if you just read through the benefits, if you go from the buying atmosphere all the way through to the price split up without asking them 5 or 6 questions, you're going to lose the engagement of that prospect. So consistently asking those questions, what would you use that $6,000 for? Why is it so important for no lifetime limits? And the trial closing question, everybody likes something different. What do you like the best about it? That it pays cash directly to you or that it covers so much? Those are great times to get the prospect engaged so they can ask you questions. And also, just so they can sell themselves. Because the more that you're talking, the less you're selling. But the more that the prospect is talking back to you, you're selling the protection. So that was phenomenal, Maria. You crushed that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle. If anybody else has any questions or wants a specific testimonial, feel free to send me a text or message me on Voxer. And I guess with that, everybody have a good rest of your day. Happy Tuesday. See y'all later.